Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. Welcome to the session of Quran for Ramadan. So today we will be studying verses 12 to 15 of Surah Luqman. As you would be knowing that Luqman was a very revered saint and a very respected personality amongst the Arabs, and they would really acknowledge him and pay him full respect. And the Quran has actually cited some of his advice and counsel that he gave to his son. And it seems that Luqman was the head of his tribe, and he was imparting this advice to his son when he was handing over the reins of the tribe to his son. And because the Arabs revered him a lot, so the Quran has cited Luqman and informed the Arabs that he too, in spite of not being a prophet of God, carried the same message and gave the same message as the Quran did. And the foremost message, of course, being that God is one and you should not associate partners with God and always thank Him. And all other attributes of God that people often take to extremes must not, in any case, be viewed in this form. You have to view all the attributes of God at the same time. So basically, this is Luqman's advice to his son, cited by the Quran before the Arabs to tell them that he gave no different an advice to his son centuries ago than what the Quran is presenting them at this moment. So the words are وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا لُقْمَانَ الْحِكْمَةَ نِشْكُرْ لِلَّهِ وَمَنْ يَشْكُرْ فَإِنَّمَا يَشْكُرُ لِنَفْسِهِ وَمَنْ كَفَرَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ. We gave precisely this wisdom to Luqman also, and directed, be grateful to God, and he who is grateful will be grateful for his own self. And he who is ungrateful, God does not care about him, because God is self sufficient. He has praiseworthy attributes. وَإِذْ قَالَ لُقْمَانُ لِابْنِهِ وَهُوَ يَعِظُهُ يَا بُنَيَّ لَا تُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ إِنَّ الشِّرْكَ لَظُلْمٌ عَظِيمٌ. The necessary requisite of this is that none should be associated with God. Recall when Luqman, while counseling his son, had said, Son, do not associate partners with God. In reality, polytheism is a great injustice. ووصينا الإنسان بوالديه حملته أمه وهنا على وهن وفصاله في عامين أن اشكر لي ولوالديك إلي المصير وإن جاهدك على أن تشرك بي ما ليس لك به علم فلا تطعهما وصاحبهما في الدنيا معروفا واتبع سبيل من أناب إلي ثم إلي مرجعكم فأنبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. There is no doubt we have counseled a human being about his parents also. His mother kept him in her womb, tolerating woe after woe, and after birth it took 2 years for his weaning. We have counseled him, be grateful to me and to your parents, and remember that ultimately to me is the return. But if they force you to associate someone with me about which you have no proof, do not obey them. Do not obey them. However, treat them kindly in this period, in this world, and follow the way of those who turn to me. Then you will have to return to me alone. Then I shall inform you of what you have been doing. So, viewers, as you can clearly see, that the message given by the Sage Luqman, the Saint Luqman, and the message of the Quran, how perfectly it coincides and in fact dovetails. And that is why, as I said earlier on, this has been cited by the Quran before the Arabs. So the first thing, as you can see, is that Luqman has said that be grateful to God. And this gratitude is something that is a responsibility of a person, because lack of gratitude or the expression of gratitude both can in no way, in any way, harm or benefit God. God is self-sufficient. He does not need our gratitude. It is we who need our own gratitude, because you see, when we are grateful to God, we are acknowledging God as our creator. We are telling all other people, and at the same time expressing our own selves in a way that we know that the favors that we enjoy are on behalf of God. The sun, the moon, the stars, the wind, the mountains, the seas, the oceans, they are all in our service. They have been put to our service by God Himself, and they are working for us. Similarly, if we look at our own body, our eyes, our ears, our body system, the way the heart pumps, the way the blood flows in it, it's all an amazing spectacle. It's like a miracle of God, and everything that we have today is basically His blessing. If we are able to see, if we are able to hear, if we are able to have 2 meals a day, if we have clothes to wear, if we have a shelter to live in, if we have access to education, if we have access to medical facilities, then this is something which is, I mean, this is something that we have to grateful to God about. Because you see, a better part of the world, or if not a better part of the world, at least 30% of the world is living below the poverty line. And that poverty line, of course, is something that we can shudder to even imagine how people are living in subhuman conditions. And if we are enjoying these favors of God, then as this verse says, that we should express gratitude to God. And if we do express this gratitude to God, then this is our own acknowledgement. This is something of a truth that we acknowledge. God does not need us to be grateful to Him. It is we who need to express this fact because it's the truth. It makes us realize that we have been created by someone who is looking after us at length, and not only looking after us, but cherishing us, sustaining us, and guiding us at the same time. So this entails a common human sentiment of expressing thanksgiving to the one who has blessed us with so much favors. So that is why this verse stresses that as far as life is concerned, in no way should we be ungrateful, because a person who is ungrateful, if he does not recognize there are people who have been nice to him, then he can never be a person who recognizes the rights of others upon him as well. And وَمَنْ كَفَرَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ. So, and he who is ungrateful, God does not care about him, because God is self-sufficient, and He has praiseworthy attributes. The next thing which is mentioned, of course, is the time when he was handing over the reins of his leadership to his son. It seems is the same as we've just discussed earlier on, is the important doctrine of monotheism or tawheed. So the words are, وَإِذْ قَالَ لُقْمَانُ لِابْنِهِ وَهُوَ يَعِظُهُ يَا بُنَيَّ لَا تُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ إِنَّ الشِّرْكَ لَظُلْمٌ عَظِيمٌ. Recall when Luqman, while counseling his son, had said, "Son, do not associate partners with God. In reality, polytheism is a great injustice." Why is it a great injustice? Because there is absolutely no proof in favor of polytheism. This is something which the Quran has remarked a number of times, commented a number of times, that had God had any partners, if He had any associates, He would have been the first one to inform us. He would have been the first one to divulge this information. And if He has not informed us that He has any partners, then how come we have a source regarding this? And because of the fact that this is like a falsehood that has been imputed towards God, we have no proof of it. So the Quran says that this is the greatest injustice that you can do. This is the greatest oppression that you can do, that you have no reason, no argument in favor of polytheism, but still you insist on doing this simply because you think that your own forefathers had done this and you have inherited their ways and you must follow them. And even if you realize that they were wrong, you still are bent upon following them, then what more can it be said about you that you have become so arrogant and so blind followers of your forefathers that you do not recognize the truth? And this makes polytheism to be the greatest injustice. So you might recall that the Quran has spoken of shirk or polytheism in a way that, it has spoken of no other thing. In fact, the Quran says that people who commit deliberate polytheism, who are deliberate polytheists, they do not repent from their polytheism, then there's no way that God is going to forgive them. He can forgive every sin, but He cannot forgive deliberate polytheism, which means that you fully know that shirk or polytheism is something wrong, but in spite of that, you insist upon it. So that is something which God really detests and abhors, and has promised a person who sticks to deliberate polytheism that he will be punished with eternal hell. We also know from the Quran that before sending us to this earth, every single soul was called before the Almighty, and He had said that famous sentence, "Alastu bi rabbikum," am I not your Lord? And every single soul that was later sent in this world, who was present there, it acknowledged that yes, you are our God, and hence we do not have any legitimate excuse when we face you on the day of judgment that to say that, well, we were not aware of you, or that we followed this creed because our own forefathers were doing so, because would be no excuse to us, because we were the people who had acknowledged the Almighty. Our souls had done so, although we don't remember that anymore. It has been deleted from our memory, but it was a real life incident, as the Quran has said. And hence, we have this intuitive cognizance of the Almighty, this intuitive inclination towards the Almighty. Our own heart and soul and mind and intuition, they vouch that we have a creator. So that is why this is something about we clearly can see that God is absolutely justified to say that if people do not admit to this, then of course this is something that would be a grave injustice on their part, and they will not be forgiven for that. The next thing which is mentioned, of course, is now the right of the parents. And this is something that is often the case in the Quran, that once the right of God is mentioned, once our obligation towards God is mentioned, the next often mention is of the parents and their rights. So the thing which is mentioned here is that the father and the mother, they have to be treated with kindness. They must be treated with full civility, with respect, and in no way should they be shown any disrespect. And if you can see from these verses that they clearly tell us that as far as the mother is concerned, she has a more right on every child, because of the fact that she has gone through three extra stages of I would say suffering, or maybe passing through trying circumstances than the father. So she carried a child in her womb. She breastfed the child, and then of course before that even could even happen, she delivered the child. So delivery, childbearing, and of course breastfeeding the child. These are the three extra responsibilities which a mother goes through, and that is why we know that she carries extra right over a child. And then what is said is also an equal eye opener. It says that if your parents force you to do something which is against religion, and what is counted here or enumerated here is shirk itself or polytheism itself, the Quran says that if they force you to indulge in polytheism, you should not accept what they do, you should refuse, and it should not be that you scold them, it should not be that you run away from them. In fact, the Quran says, فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. Do not obey them in this regard. However, you must be polite, you must be kind to them, you must be very, very generous in your treatment towards them. And وَاتَّبِعْ سَبِيلَ مَنْ أَنَابَ إِلَيَّ, which means that you must follow the way of those who turn to God. And from this also we must be aware of the fact that as far as parents are concerned, you will not find anywhere in the Quran, there's not a single instance in the Quran in which it is said that you have to obey parents. Every single instance in the Quran, wherever parents have been mentioned, the words are wabil walidaini ihsana, treat your parents with kindness. So we have to understand that as far as following our parents is concerned, this is a concept which is alien to the Quran. It is something of I would say, something that is outside the Quran and has been injected into the verses of the Quran. The Quran has asked us to obey God, of course, and it has not asked anywhere in its whole corpus that we are required to obey our parents. Yes, we are required to be kind to them, to be polite to them, but obeying parents is a concept that is not found anywhere in the Quran, and that is why we have to understand that parents do not have any right to force their children to carry out their own choices, or to accept their own worldview, or to maybe marry the way they would like them to marry, or do jobs or adopt professions they would like them to do, which is something that we find often in third world countries. So this is absolutely against the spirit of the Quran. The Quran recognizes every grown-up child as an individual who has the right to do and adopt whatever he or she would do or like to do, and would responsible and be responsible at the same time of the choice that he or she makes before God. The parents are not responsible for this. So obeying parents is a concept, as I said, not found in the Quran. What the Quran says is that you have to be polite to them, you must not be rude to them, you must not scold them, you must not be disrespectful to them, and that is all. That's the mandate that we have. Parents have to realize that they have to nurture their children in a way that they do not force them in any way to do what they would like them to do, not adopt their own worldview, not adopt their religious views. Yes, they can be their advisors, they can be their good counselors. They can suggest, they can tell them that they are doing something that might lead them to a lot of problems, but that is all as far as they can go, and then stop and then say that, well, the decision that you would like to take is yours, and I would stand, or we would stand at your back, in spite of maybe not agreeing with what the choice that you have made regarding your profession, or maybe regarding your spouse, or maybe regarding any major decision in life, but we still stand behind you. So, with this, we come to an end to today's talk and discussion on this portion of Surah Luqman, and now we are free for questions and answers.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saleem, for the wonderful lecture. Welcome, participants. We have Irfa Iqbal with a raised hand. Please unmute your mic and ask your question.
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम, थैंक यू। डॉक्टर साहब, अभी इस आयत में और कुरान में इसके अलावा भी बहुत सी जगहों पर वालिदैन के साथ अच्छा सलूक करने की, उनका दिल ना दुखाने की और बहुत सी इस किस्म की हदायत आई हैं। अब अगर कोई ऐसी सिचुएशन होती है जहाँ वालिदैन के, और वो बूढ़े भी हैं, और उनके आपस के ताल्लुकात जो हैं वो कंस्ट्रेंट हैं, और एक के साथ अगर आप ज्यादा अच्छा सलूक करते हैं तो उससे दूसरे का दिल दुखता है, तो इस सूरत में क्या किया जाए?
नहीं, देखिए, हमारी जिम्मेदारी ये है कि हम दोनों के साथ अच्छा सलूक करें।
लेकिन वो कंडीशन हो जाता है ना, एक के साथ अच्छा करें और दूसरा नाराज हो जाता है, तो उन्हें खुश करने के लिए आप क्या करें? फिर आपके उनमें से एक पेरेंट का दिल तो आपसे दुखा रहा ना।
नहीं, देखिए, आपके यहाँ तवाज़ुन होना चाहिए। देयर हैज टू बी अ बैलेंस्ड एंड अ मॉडरेट वे एज फार एज द चिल्ड्रन आर कंसर्न, द एडल्ट चिल्ड्रन आर कंसर्न। और अगर वो इसके बावजूद दुखी रहते हैं तो इसकी जिम्मेदारी आपकी नहीं है। यानी आपको अपने इस ज़मीर में मुतमईन होना चाहिए कि मैंने कोई डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं की, मैंने किसी एक पेरेंट की तरफ जानबूझ के मैं माइल नहीं हुआ, मैं दूसरे का हक अदा अगर नहीं कर पा रही, तो इट्स नॉट बिकॉज दिस इज सम डिलिबरेट थिंग। ये एक परसेप्शन है जो किसी एक पेरेंट की डेवलप हो सकती है, और ये परसेप्शन तो कहीं भी हो सकती है। तो परसेप्शन के लिए आप आंसरेबल नहीं है अल्लाह ताला के आगे। आपको खुद मुतमईन होना चाहिए कि यू आर नॉट शोइंग एनी डिस्क्रिमिनेशन। तो इफ यू आर इफ यू आर सेटिस्फाइड इन योर ओन कॉन्शियंस, दैट इज एब्सोल्युटली फाइन। यू डोंट हैव टू वरी अबाउट व्हाट दे से, बिकॉज पेरेंट्स तो इस तरह की बात करते ही रहते हैं, कभी कभी उनको ऐसा महसूस हो जाता है। और मैं ज़रा थोड़ा सा अगर उसको ब्लंटली कहूँ, नॉट नो ऑफेंस इंटेंडेड, पेरेंट्स कभी कभी इमोशनली ब्लैकमेल भी कर देते हैं इस तरह का कह के। तो वो उनकी एक मान होता है, उनकी मोहब्बत होती है। आपको इत्मीनान होना चाहिए कि आपने कोई किसी की बेजा साइड नहीं ली।
थैंक यू डॉक्टर सलीम। नादिया, प्लीज अनम्यूट योर माइक एंड आस्क योर क्वेश्चन। नादिया, अपना माइक
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम, थैंक यू। मेरा क्वेश्चन जो है वो इस आयत के बारे में नहीं है, लेकिन मैं पूछूं?
नहीं, फिर नादिया आप टुवर्ड्स द एंड के लिए इंतजार करें, बिकॉज़ मैं पहले
ओके
आई विल कॉल अपॉन यू लेटर। समीना नईम, प्लीज अनम्यूट योर माइक एंड आस्क योर क्वेश्चन।
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम। जी डॉक्टर शहजाद, पॉलीथिज्म इज लाइक शिर्क, ठीक है जी, बट in the present time, unfortunately, we see that there are large number of people who are atheists. They don't believe in God, unfortunately, even from Muslim families. And it's not that they see things and they feel that God is there, but they genuinely think that there is no God and there is no life hereafter. So what should we call these people? Are these kafar, or what is the term used for such people?
I think you just cannot use the word kuffar for them, because kuffar or kafir actually means that you recognize the truth and you still deny it. You understand what the truth is and you don't accept it. So this is what a kafir is. Who at this instance, who don't believe in God for any reason, or maybe they have a different view regarding God, because at times they don't express the word God, but they believe in some divine force or some superior force, and they just change the names. So I think that maybe we should not even label them, but as best as we can, the closest that we can label them is that they are, as you said, they are atheists and who think that there is no God. And more than that, I think we should be worried about why at all are they atheists. And I think that a lot is got to do with the way religion has been presented to them, the way people who are proponents of their religion, whether they are Christians or Muslims or Jews or any other religions. I can talk about the Abrahamic proponents of religion. We find them to be proponents of religion at the same time, unfortunately, being child molesters, rapists, and still being preachers. So you see, there are certain things in their character which at times draws people away from them. And then again, there is this fact that the way religion is taught to them, the way it is preached to them in a way that you should blindly follow things, and things, of course, about which you would simply be stunned that what could this be a part of religion or not. So I think that has also got a lot to do with how you present religion. So our concern should be that why people about whom God has said that every single person has God in his intuition, why is it that in spite of having this intuitive knowledge of God, they still don't somehow recognize them? So I think in most cases, the reason lies outside of them. And the third and last reason I would say is the problem of sin, or the problem of misery. So people are not able to reconcile the merciful or the mercy of God with the misery that is found in this world. So one of the greatest causes of atheism is that people think that if God is merciful, then why do we have so much misery in this world? So these are the three basic causes of atheism. So one, the lack of reconciliation of misery with mercy of God, the misery on this earth and the misery of God, and the mercy of God. Second, the character of people who present religion. And third, the way religion is itself presented is absolutely I would say, I mean, people get more confused and people get drawn away from the picture of religion that they are presented. So I think could be more our cause of concern.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Salman Aziz, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
So the time period of wet nursing is about 2 years, but you have added in bracket that after birth. So any particular reason to add that bracket, sir? And because I think in other places in the Quran, I think Allah Almighty has said that both the husband and wife can mutually agree and make this period less than 2 years.
Yes, correct. So what's the question then?
So why we added in the bracket that after birth?
Why we added what? Let me check. Are you talking about the translation?
Translation in the brackets we have added that after birth, it's 2 years.
Let me see. I think just an explanation. And remember, this is a translation of Ustaz Ghamidi's translation. And as far as I can see, the reason for this bracket is that it is being informed that there are two. I mean, there are three basically trial periods for a mother, and one of them is when the child is carried by her in a womb, and the other two, they come into play once the child is born. So this afterbirth, it just makes us realize that we are now entering the second step in which the child has been born in this world, and now his delivery and the weaning part is being mentioned. So you can see the weaning, I mean, the delivery is not mentioned here. So that is why, in order to just insert this part, that once the child has been born, the weaning, the breastfeeding of the child is going to continue. So it just adds that missing phase, which is not found here, but it's found elsewhere in the Quran, which tells us that childbearing or delivering a child also is an equal trial or suffering for a woman.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Tina Manzir, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
It's unmuted, I think. Can you hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Shehzad Sahab.
Walaikum.
My daughter-in-law is listening with me, and she would like to know, okay, what is as you said that the children also have rights. What is the age after which you are supposed to completely support them?
Like there is no age that has been fixed. I think it's the mental maturity that is the real thing. This mental maturity can come as early as 13 or 14. It could be delayed. So once you realize your child has an opinion and he or she is mentally mature, she knows what right and wrong are. That is the age after which no force should be. I mean, you should not force your child in any way to adopt things that you have adopted. So as soon as this age is reached, your role should become advisory.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Umar Khan, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर, मेरा छोटा सा कमेंट है और एक क्वेश्चन है। कमेंट है, अभी किसी ने एथियस्ट के बारे में पूछा था, तो मैं सिर्फ ये कहना चाहता था कि 2015 तक मैं खुद बहुत रिलीजियस रहा हूँ और उसके बाद 7-8 साल मैं एग्नोस्टिक रहा हूँ तो फिर अल्लाह ने मुझे ईमान वापस दिया है। तो आप जो भी बहन जो सवाल कर रही थी, आप जो भी एथियस्ट हैं, एग्नोस्टिक्स हैं, उनके साथ आप रहमदिली के साथ पेश आइए, इंशाल्लाह अल्लाह बेहतर करेंगे। और मेरा ये सवाल है सर, जो लुकमान अलैहिस्सलाम के बारे में आपने बताया, आयत डिस्कस किया, तो उनके बारे में अगर थोड़ा सी और इन्फॉर्मेशन आप दे दीजिए कि वो हिस्ट्री में कहाँ थे और क्या थे, तो
नहीं,
बस
मेरा
ये
ख्याल
मेरी
है ये तो बहुत
क्यूरियोसिटी थी।
सिंपल है, इसमें कोई मेरी एक्सपर्टीज नहीं है। आप गूगल में लुकमान का नाम लिखेंगे तो आपको बता देंगे कि वो चंद सौ साल पहले थे, और वो एक बड़ी फेमस ट्राइब थी, उसके वो हेड थे, और उसकी जो उनकी हैसियत ये थी कि वो बहुत नेक और आदिल और बहुत ज़्यादा अरब उनकी रिस्पेक्ट करते थे, क्योंकि उनके ज़रिए से बहुत गैर मामूली काम हुए थे। तो ये एक ब्रीफ इंट्रोडक्शन है, बाकी बहुत ज़्यादा तफसील अगर आपने देखनी हो तो आप विकिपीडिया पे या उन पे जो एंट्री है उसको देख सकते हैं।
जी थैंक यू।
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Akram Bhatti Saab, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
जी
बहन, मेरा सवाल is not pertaining to today's subject, is pertaining to something sir expressed earlier. So can I ask her?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Sir,
Right.
abhi few minutes ago you discussed in answering a question to somebody, you said that and you said that earlier also in other days, that we cannot call anybody kafir unless they admit it. But I find this in Surah Maida, ayah number 17, I think it is, that Allah says, لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْمَسِيحُ ابْنُ मरियम। तो
करेक्ट।
इसका ट्रांसलेशन दो तीन लोगों में देखा तो किया है कि people who disbelieve or people who say
I get your question. मैं समझ गया. Let
उर्दू
me
में तो
explain. You
काफिर
see,
लिखा हुआ है।
yes, I get your question. You see, the verb has been used here. Laqad kafara. So kafara is not a noun, it's not an adjective, it's a verb, which means that it's an instance of kufr. An act of kufr has taken place. A person can display an act of kufr. An act of kufr can emanate from that person, in spite of that person not being a kafir. So you see, there is a very delicate difference. A kafir is a person who knows what the truth is and he does not acknowledge it. Kafara, a person is a person who is basically correct or maybe a monotheist, but he does something, a one-off incident maybe, or one act that actually is an act of disbelief. To give you an example, Muslims, when they go to the shrines of people and they prostrate there, in spite of being monotheists, they commit an act of polytheism. But that act of polytheism does not make them polytheists. Similarly, when Christians call Jesus to be the Son of God, then this itself is an act of disbelief. But this does not make them disbelievers. To be a disbeliever, you have to acknowledge something to be what you think it to be, and then deny it. So when a Muslim is going to prostrate before in the shrine of a saint, and if you tell that Muslim that this is shirk, he will never accept it. He says, no, this is not shirk, this is not polytheism, this is in accordance with monotheism. So this is like a deviant way of believing in one God. In a similar way, when the Christians, they believe in Jesus to be the Son of God, God says that how can this be consistent with God being one? And so they try to explain it that God is one, and there is a manifestation of God in three Godheads, like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, which they call Trinity. So this is the explanation, that an act of kufr does not make a person kafir. An act of polytheism does not make a person polytheist. It is a willful acknowledgement of kufr or a willful acknowledgement of polytheism that can make a person either a kafir or a polytheist.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Nadia, please, you can ask your question now.
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम डॉक्टर शहजाद, मैंने पूछना था, आपने शायद 2-3 दिन पहले ये मेंशन भी किया था कि हम सुन्नतों में मुसहफ या मैं आईपैड से पढ़ती हूँ तो वो हाथ में लेके पढ़ सकते हैं?
जी, पढ़ सकते हैं।
अच्छा, और दूसरा ही रिलेटेड सवाल था कि अगर वितर मतलब अगर इशा की नमाज फर्ज पढ़ के सो जाएं और उठ के सिर्फ वितर पढ़ें तो वो तहज्जुद काउंट होगी?
जी बिल्कुल, वो है ही तहज्जुद। वितर होते ही तहज्जुद है। बिल्कुल, आप अपने वक्त पे सही वक्त पे पढ़ेंगे तो वो तहज्जुद ही कहलाएंगे।
मतलब कोई और नफिल ना पढ़ें अगर?
जी बिल्कुल, 3 पढ़ना, क्योंकि आप 3 वितर पढ़ेंगे तो वो कम से कम मिकदार है तहज्जुद की।
जी, क्योंकि इशा के 4 सुन्नत, 4 फर्ज, 2 सुन्नत पढ़ लिए, फिर सो गए और उठ के तहज्जुद के टाइम पे 3 वितर पढ़ लिए।
जी बिल्कुल दुरुस्त सही।
जी, थैंक यू।
Zubair Hussain, please unmute your mic and ask your question. I think you had a question yesterday. Okay. Sadia Said, if you have a question.
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम डॉक्टर साहब। मेरा क्वेश्चन कल के सवाल पे था जो आपने कहा था कि ज़कात के पैसे जो होते हैं वो बिल्कुल पाक साफ होते हैं। तो मैंने आपको ही सुनते हुए किसी को ज़कात ऑफर की तो उन्होंने मुझे जवाब में कहा कि क्यों, मैंने उनको बता दिया कि ज़कात के पैसे हैं, तो उन्होंने कहा मैं सैयद हूँ और मैं सैयद के ऊपर ज़कात और सदका नहीं। तो मैंने आपको कोट करते हुए कहा कि ये साफ पैसे हैं, इट्स नॉट कि आपको ज़रूरत है और आप मजबूरी में हैं तो फिर आप क्या करेंगे। दूसरा सवाल छोटा सा ये है कि
एक मिनट, मैं पहले आपको इसका जवाब दे दूं। पहली बात तो ये कि आपको बताने की जरूरत नहीं है, यानी असल में आप ये किसी को भी बताने की आपको जरूरत नहीं है कि आप ज़कात दे रहे हैं, ये तो आपका खुदा का मामला है, नंबर एक। नंबर दो, ये सैयद के बारे में भी एक बहुत गलत फहमी है। ये सिर्फ नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने अपने और अपने अहल याल के बारे में कहा था कि हम ज़कात एक्सेप्ट नहीं करेंगे। इसको इरोनियसली लोगों ने समझ लिया कि जैसे तमाम जो प्रॉफिट के डिसेंडेंट्स हैं वो सैयद हो गए हैं, उसके नतीजे में वो ज़कात एक्सेप्ट नहीं करेंगे। ये तो खुद एक बहुत बड़ी गलत फहमी है। और इसके नतीजे में जैसे आपने कहा कि बहुत सारे जरूरतमंद सैयद होते हैं और ज़कात।
जी बिल्कुल। तो फिर मैंने यही सोचा, मैंने कहा कि आपको जरूरत है तो आपको, और मुझे ये पता था कि आपको बता के देनी है जब आप ज़कात दे रहे हैं तो दूसरे को बताना जरूरी है कि ये ज़कात के पैसे, इसलिए मैंने बताया। बट थैंक यू फॉर क्लैरिफिकेशन कि बताने की जरूरत नहीं है। दूसरा डॉक्टर साहब छोटा सा सवाल कि जो आपने कहा था कुत्ता जो है, डॉग को आप रख सकते हैं और वो पाक है, मतलब नजिस नहीं है और फरिश्ते भी आते हैं। तो मैं सिर्फ ये सवाल था कि अगर वो आपके कपड़ों को छू ले तो आप नमाज पढ़ सकते हैं?
बिल्कुल पढ़ सकते हैं। ये ऐसे जैसे बिल्ली अगर छू लेगी तो क्या करेंगे? जो बिल्ली के साथ आप सलूक, जो बिल्ली है वही कुत्ता है, यानी कोई फर्क नहीं है जी। अगर बिल्ली जैसे आपके हाथ में, कोई फर्क नहीं है।
थैंक यू सो मच, बहुत शुक्रिया।
Dr. Saleem, we have 2 raised hands. Can I go ahead? We're over
Yes,
time.
please go ahead. Go ahead.
Riyaz, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
अस्सलाम
वालेकुम।
Can you hear me? एक सवाल ये होता है कि मदीने में हुजूर सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बनाया जिसमें सारे नॉन मुस्लिम्स का हक बराबर था या जिस तरह भी था। जब हम कहते हैं इत्मामुल हुज्जा जो है जब उस वक्त में हो गया
जी,
तो ये उसको कैसे रिकंसाइल करें हम?
नहीं देखिए, ये तो 2 मुख्तलिफ स्टेजेस हैं। जब नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम मदीने में गए हैं तो उनको हुक्मरान की हैसियत से मान लिया गया था और उनको कहा गया था कि वो तमाम डिस्प्यूट्स में फैसला कुन हैसियत वो रखते हैं। उन्होंने मुआहदात किए जिसकी बुनियाद पे वो गए। उसके बाद उन्होंने दीन की दावत जो अहले किताब थे वहाँ पे उनको देना शुरू की और एक पूरे प्रोसेस के ज़रिए से वो उस प्रोसेस में वो यानी उसमें मामले में वो गए हैं। इस वजह से वो जो इत्माम हुज्जत वाला मामला है वो तो दीन के इस पहलू से है कि जब उनको हुक्मरान मान लिया गया और तमाम डिस्प्यूट्स में फैसला कुन अथॉरिटी मान लिया गया तो अब उनके पास अब दीन को एक बताने का एक प्लेटफॉर्म मैसर आ गया और अल्लाह के बिहाफ पे वो इस पे एक लिहाज से डिप्यूट हो गए और इस दीन की दावत को उन्होंने पहुंचाया और फिर पहुंचा के कोई ज़बरदस्ती नहीं की उन्होंने। कुरान ये कहता है कि उनको हक इस दर्जे में वाज़ेह कर दिया कि उनके सामने सवाए हट धर्मी के इनकार की कोई गुंजाइश नहीं थी। यानी ये नहीं था कि उनके पास कोई कन्फ्यूजन थी और वो कहते थे कि भाई आपने हम पे ज़बरदस्ती की है और हम तो आपकी बात को नहीं समझ पा रहे या कोई इस बात में फ़लाँ सुकम है या फ़लाँ फ़लॉ है। नहीं, कुरान ये कहता, इत्माम हुज्जत का मतलब ये होता है कि फिर अल्लाह ताला के पैगम्बर ने सच्चाई को इस दर्जे में वाज़ेह कर दिया कि तमाम जो मुखातिबीन थे वो कहने लगे कि हाँ जी वी एक्सेप्ट इट बट वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू, आई मीन वी नो कि ये सच्चाई है बट वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू एक्सेप्ट इट। ये कहते हैं इत्माम हुज्जत। तो इस वजह से इत्माम हुज्जत को यहाँ हम सही मानते हैं कि इसके अंदर कोई ज़बरदस्ती इस लिहाज से नहीं की गई कि किसी ने कहा हो कि मुझे समझ में नहीं आई और आप लिहाजा मेरे साथ आप ज्यादती करें, बल्कि हर एक ने जान लिया कि ये सच है लेकिन उसके बावजूद इनकार किया। तो ये प्रोसेस था जो पूरा इख्तियार किया गया।
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. I have a quick question in the chat. While calculating our zakat, we are supposed to add all cash in hand, also in addition to other assets. So my question is, shall the wife consider her pocket money in her possession also, or that's not to be added?
नहीं, देखिए आपके पास जो कैश इन हैंड है वाइफ के पास एट द टाइम ऑफ जो आपकी डेट है, चाहे वो पॉकेट मनी से आया हो चाहे वो कहीं से भी आया हो, वो आपकी सेविंग है। Whatever saving a wife would have at the date that she is liable to pay zakat, उसमें ज्वेलरी हो सकती है या कोई भी और चीज़ हो सकती है, कोई ऐसा एसेट हो सकता है, कैश है चाहे वो पॉकेट मनी से आया हो चाहे कहीं इनकम से आया हो, दैट इज लायबल टू zakat.
Okay, thank you. Akram Bhatti sahab, if you can make your question very quick because we are completely out of time.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir, I need clarification about Tarawih. I had heard that Tarawih makes your all the nawafil as odd, and just like Maghrib make all your fries फर्ज ज़कातें होती हैं उसको ऐड करती हैं। आपने फरमाया था कि अगर रात को भी आप तरावी पढ़ लें तो और वितर भी पढ़ लें तो सुबह उठ के फिर दोबारा वितर पढ़ें तो वो तो फिर इवन हो जाएगा। ये क्लैरिफिकेशन चाहता हूँ कि
you see, इवन नहीं होगा। इवन तो तब होगा जब उसको आप ऐड कर रहे हैं। यहाँ पे आप रिप्लेस कर रहे हैं रात की नमाज को उसके प्रॉपर वक्त पे सही नमाज पे। दिस इज अ रिप्लेसमेंट, नॉट एन एडिशन।
अगर रात भी पढ़ लिया मैंने 11 रकातें सुबह
जी
उठ के
जी,
फिर
मैं
पढ़
वही
ली
कह रहा हूँ ना, आप दोबारा पढ़ेंगे तो आप ये कह रहे हैं जी कि अल्लाह मियां ये जो मैंने अब लेटेस्ट पढ़े हैं आपने इनको एक्सेप्ट करना है। वो आपने रात को रिप्लेस किया है।
कर सकते हैं।
जी, रिप्लेसमेंट है वो, यानी वो एडिशन नहीं है। वो आपने ये कहा जी कि मैंने वही दोबारा पढ़ ली है अपने असल वक्त पे।
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Thank you, everyone. We're all out of time. Thank you, Dr. Saleem, for a wonderful session. And inshallah,